Marvel Cinematic Universe, or MCU, has taken the world by storm and is still going strong 15 years later. The MCU movie I chose to talk about this week is the movie that kickstarted it all, Iron Man. This movie came out in 2008 and was directed by Jon Favreau. Let's check it out.
What are you building, Star?
I'm working on something big. Yeah, I can fly.
A man with a dozen of these could rule the world.
I'm not gonna let it happen. I want to protect the people I put in harm's way.
Iron Man, rated PG-13.
All right, so I actually haven't, it's been a while since I've seen the first Iron Man, and I watched it the other night, and I think it really holds up for as old as it is, you know, from being for 2008, I think, yeah. And it, honestly, even like, you could tell it's kind of dated with some of the CGI and stuff with the armor, but I still think that the armor and stuff, I think it really holds up, just like the look of it all.
Yeah, you know, before this movie came out, no one really even cared about Iron Man that much. I mean, the only recognizable Marvel stars at the time were, you know, like Wolverine, the Hulk. But, you know, when this movie came out, I wasn't really paying attention to it because this was back in like 2008. And by the time I was at elementary school, I didn't really care about superheroes that much. But, you know, this is the first time I ever like seen the movie. And, you know, I thought it was like a good watch, you know, a good beginning because I'm not that big in the MCU, but I, of course, have the general idea what's going on. I know Tony Stark is a big like player in this. I also know that Dave replaced his best friend in the second movies.
Yeah, Terrence Howard plays Rhodey in this movie, and then right after they changed it to Don Cheadle. And it's so funny looking back seeing him in this movie because it's just not addressed at all. As a kid, I didn't even notice that, to be honest. I didn't notice it was two different actors until like years later. How it is.
I kind of did notice that they switched the actor for War Machine because it's so the actor now gave more emotion into the character.
Yeah, and also in this movie, I don't think it was fully fleshed out. You know, I mean, maybe that's why I didn't notice because, like, I honestly kind of forgot that Rhodey was in this movie. Because I mean, he's in some of the scenes. Maybe as a kid, I just didn't realize it was. I thought it was just two different people.
Some of it wasn't paying that much attention to the MCU. The thing that's kind of funny is that okay, you went from a light-skinned brother to a very dark-skinned brother. And for someone who doesn't notice, I'm going to look at you half crazy and be like, how did you not notice? But the funny story about that is that it wasn't actually the actor itself. It was the actual manager. He wanted, you know, him to have more of like, I guess, more pay or more like his focus, even though he wasn't really the main star. And this was a time when, you know, Hollywood wasn't that accepting of showing, you know, people of color that much. So he was like, okay, well, I guess we'll just replace you then. And I mean, I'm glad I love like the actor now, you know, Don Cheadle now, but it's kind of funny.
So yeah, it kind of did him dirty, just for wanting a little bit more money, And also, Jeff Bridges playing, you know, Ironmonger, the villain in this movie. I think he did a great performance, you know, and he had, I guess, a good motive to do, maybe not good motive, but like, you know, understandable, the actions he took. It was out of jealousy and such, you know, living in Tony's shadow and such. And I think it's just kind of weird just seeing Jeff Bridges bald now after seeing The Big Lebowski and stuff like that, just seeing him with a bald head and a big beard. And also, like, I think the story is like underrated in this because like I think all of our movies kind of like tie into this. It's about, you know, change because, you know, the very beginning of the movie, the first scene we're in the military vehicle, you know, you can tell he's acting like, you know, your stereotypical like, you know, playboy kind of, you know, rich millionaire kind of thing. And then you know, after being held captive and escaping and stuff, it's like a wake up call, you know, realizing that, you know, the weapons he's selling, they're getting in the wrong hands and what it does to people.
I mean, this is like very, you know, political movie in my opinion. Because it does talk about stuff that, because around this time it was, you know, during the war of Afghanistan. And it was a thing where it tackled, you know, hey, you know, these millionaires are selling these weapons. And in their mind, they're like, oh, you know, I'm just making money. But at the same time, you're selling these weapons to other people who's going to use them against other countries. And that's a big problem. And that's a conversation that's been going on, you know, ever since during that time.
Yeah, and as a kid, that's something I just didn't, you know, really pay attention to. Like, you know, it's like, oh, cool, you know, missiles and stuff. And I didn't really understand. But like, as I'm older now, I'm watching them, like, oh, okay, you know, there are people like this in the real world, you know. They just sell to the highest bidder, the weapons and such, and don't really care who gets them.
So the real villain of the MCU is capitalism.
Yeah, a lot.
And also just like, I know, like, the first the Mark I suit, I guess you call it, when he's in the cave. It looked like a lot of it looked like very practical, and it's kind of refreshing to see something like that. After like so many of the newer MCU movies just relying very heavily on CGI, seeing them do something practically, or semi-practically with the armor and stuff. It's nice on the eyes to see something like that.
And this was a time where the MCU wasn't really the MCU. It was like this
Yeah,
awkward phase of where you had like the first Hulk, that movie came out, and
Mm-hmm.
people were having this debate. It was like, okay, is that a Hulk canon? Because this is around the time, before like Marvel wasn't a big name. And this is around the time where Marvel was selling a lot of their stuff. So you're wondering why we got those like horrible, like, I guess they're them bad now, those Fantastic Four movies where you have like the Thing, who looks like he's made of Play-Doh and plastic. Because around the time where Marvel was just selling out all their properties to the highest bidder. So you had like Hulk with Universal, you had the Fantastic Four at the time, and also the X-Men with Fox. But right now Disney owns everything.
Yeah, because actually I noticed when I was watching it on Paramount was the studio that did that movie, and it was weird to see like watching an MCU movie and not seeing like the opening reel or whatever.
Yeah, because it was
Disney.
a time where
And,
Disney didn't own Marvel at
Yeah.
the time. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it was like an awkward phase where a universe didn't really exist, and also this was around the time where Hollywood wasn't so infatuated with universes because the MCU was the first one to really kick it off. But then you had like the DCE universe. So some people were like, okay, I don't know what they're doing over there because they feel like they're rebooting it every like 3 movies.
Yeah.
But then you had the Dark Universe that Universal was trying to do with their monster movies, which
Yeah.
didn't work at all because they all had one and that failed.
What's I think the Conjuring universe, right? Yeah, all the Conjuring movies. It's where it's like almost like a little snowball effect. This one just kind of started the tumble. I don't know. I forgot how much I really just enjoyed this movie, to be honest. Even though you can tell it's kind of dated and stuff. Like as I was watching, I was like, ooh, I remember thinking that was cool as a kid. Like all this little technology, like he's doing like the holograms, building the suit. I remember like just thinking back, like, man, when I was a kid, I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. Just seeing all that. And honestly, this movie was like kind of what got me into watching superhero movies in the MCU and stuff. So it has a little, little piece within me,
And also, I guess we can say that this was a time where we didn't know superhero movies were that good. But
Yeah, it offered like it told everyone like, hey, superhero movies can be good and actually have merit to them and such. And I think that was honestly most of that just to Jon Favreau, who directed this movie. And he directed many other great movies from my child, like Elf. He directed that, which is weird to think that the same guy who made Elf made that first Iron Man. But I really think he's a solid director. And he even he helped almost revive like the Star Wars universe with the Mandalorian and stuff. So he definitely has this knack for like taking stuff and like almost like reviving it, just adding his flair to it. And I think that's really cool.
oh yeah, do you guys have any final thoughts or?
Well, ever since 2008, I really didn't watch Iron Man, like all of the Iron Man movies. But when the Avengers movie came out, that's when I watched it. Or that's when I watched the Avengers, and when I saw him, I was like, I didn't like him. And then at the end of Endgame, he sacrificed himself, and that actually made me change my mind about not liking him.
Yeah, no, definitely throughout all the movies, Tony definitely does have like this very big character arc where he goes from being like a self-absorbent, kind of d-bag, to really being like selfless, and it's a very gradual thing, and I think that's really cool how it's not, he just flips a switch. It's a very, gradual thing how he gets like that.
Oh yeah. Well, on to another MCU movie. After this commercial break, we'll take a look at the 2017 Thor Ragnarok.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzz and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So, yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
So the movie that I'm going to be discussing is the 2017 Thor Ragnarok. And fun fact, this actually is the movie that got me into the MCU. But before that, let's take a look at the trailer.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you've come for. It's end time.
Oh, I've missed this.
I'm putting together a team.
This team of yours, has it got a name?
Yeah, it's called the Revenges.
Revengers?
I mean, we don't have to have a name. We could have no name.
Get tickets now.
So, you know, before we saw the trailer, I told you that this was actually the first movie that got me into the MCU. And pretty much, okay, we're doing spoilers, but pretty much the premise of this movie is that, you know, Ragnarok is coming. Thor has to defeat pretty much his aunt, pretty much Hela, to, I guess, fight back and everything. I know it's been a long time since I've really seen it, but the thing about this movie that got me into the MCU was, you know, the music really got to me when I was watching the trailers. Like, it looked like very, like, high action. It had all the colors. It looked like everything that the MCU was prayed for, you know, the humor, the action, the comedy, pretty much all of it is there. And the thing about this movie is that it's actually the first movie that I felt like the MCU really established Thor's character. Before then, you know, I saw clips and I saw some images of what Thor was. And, you know, in the first Avengers, he was kind of this very Shakespearean, like, actor, very dumb sometimes. I mean, he had his dumb moments, but it wasn't like this dumb comedically. I mean, I guess the reason why people think Thor 2 is their least favorite is because it was very Shakespearean, as I would say, very drab, very, like, take itself too seriously, where it's like, yeah, this isn't really that fun. I know what you guys think.
Yeah, also, like, when he's first introduced, there wasn't that much, like, substance to his character, and I think this one really, you know, fleshed him out. But going in and seeing it, was kind of, like, daunting to see him from, like, you know, being that, like, Shakespearean kind of type, and then flipping the switch and being, like, you know, throwing jokes left and right. It was kind of daunting at first, but I grew to enjoy it. And one thing I'll go ahead and say, I wasn't a fan of the short hair when this movie first came out, but it has definitely grown on me, because in the newest Thor, when he got the long hair back, I was like, that just doesn't look right now after, you know, seeing him with no hair for so long.
Come on, his long hair's brother.
I know, no, I enjoy the long hair, but I think I just got so used to, because I think it was like 3 or 4 movies he had the short hair. It grew on me. I do like it.
Oh yeah, you know, the thing about this movie, as I will say, is that it does a really good job, you know, balancing the humor all along with the series, because there are some moments in the movie that, you know, maybe tear up just a little bit, you know, when he was, you know, it was him and his brother Loki talking to his father Odin, you know, like on the ocean side talking, and then, but it doesn't do like a thing where it drags so much on the sour stuff. I'm just like, hey, like, this is too like over dramatic, as I would say, but they do a good job of going back to the humor and stuff.
Yeah. And I think like a big part of the humor it can go to Jeff Goldblum playing the Grandmaster in this movie. I think he was I think it was great.
It's just Jeff Goldblum just being Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, it just being himself. I think he didn't even have a script. He probably just walked on the set and they just started recording him.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, my favorite scene of Thor Ragnarok was Hulk and Thor when they are like in the arena fighting each other, and it was just so funny though.
I mean, the thing about the whole Hulk situation, I got another fun fact for y'all, is that, you know, the reason why they couldn't do a really standalone Hulk movie in MCU, because they really, I think I heard they really want to do like something like Planet Hulk. That's where the whole, you know, Hulk being on this other planet came from, is based on the comics Planet Hulk. And the thing about it is Universal's like, yeah, so we own the rights to doing like a solo Hulk movie, but they didn't say anything about having Hulk with somebody else. So that's where the whole team up of Hulk and Thor came from. And I think they did like a really good job, you know, because this is also the first movie in the MCU where they really were smarting up the Hulk, because before he just seemed like a raging monster that Bruce Banner had to deal with. But, you know, this was the first movie that really gave him an intelligence, and then eventually was the next step to, like,
completely intelligent.
Like Infinity War and Endgame, where he's completely intelligent, where he's like wearing like the sweater and everything, has the face of like Bruce Banner.
Honestly, I didn't like that choice too much, like in the MCU where they made him smart and everything, because I grew up loving the Hulk as a kid, you know, and like in the at least Endgame and stuff, you know, I wanted to see him have like a redemption, especially in Endgame, like in fighting Thanos. You know, him like I was really thinking that whole movie that he was gonna like, you know, get rage up and be like the Hulk again, the actual Hulk again, and it just never happened. I don't know, and I just wish they would I wish they would have fleshed Hulk out more as like this the battle between Bruce Banner and the Hulk, because they just kind of like shows, oh, hey, I figured it out. We're good now. Hey, they didn't really show how he got to that point.
If it wasn't for Universal, they got so much time.
Yeah, so much time, all this money, I can't make a Hulk movie. Or just let Disney buy the rights. I'm sure they have the money to.
Yeah, but going back to the whole Thor Ragnarok. Also, they also make the fun joke of Loki always backstabbing Thor all the time, and even expand it into Loki show on Disney Plus. A lot of this, and it also gives because this also gives a preview to Infinity War, because at the end of it, you think you have a happy ending, but then Thanos shows up and just ruins everything. And so maybe that's why I got into the MCU, because it left me on such a big cliffhanger. Because since Avengers, they always built up Thanos as this big bad. And it was all those things where it's like, well, he's coming someday, maybe. Wait, no, now he's here, and now, I guess it really hyped me up. It's like, yeah, now we're here after all
X
these
amount of
movies.
years, So was this your first MCU movie you watched?
I'm not really. It was a thing where I would watch bits and pieces there. I've seen Guardians of the Galaxy before this, but it wasn't because I think the thing about Thor Ragnarok, it really was the first MCU movie that got me excited to watch the next one. It always just felt like I would watch an MCU movie like the Guardians of the Galaxy. I'd be like, yeah, that's cool, but I'm not a fan. I'm not anticipating for the next one. I'm not waiting for Comic-Con videos. I'm not watching theory videos about what's gonna happen next. I wasn't that big of a fan, but Thor Ragnarok was really the one where I guess it really did get me excited for Infinity War, because it really felt like it left me on a big cliffhanger, and I enjoyed the movie that much that I want to see what happens next.
And that's a really cool thing about this movie. I think when it came out, a lot of my friends, like you, a lot of my friends who weren't really big in the MCU, they went with me to watch this, even though they weren't big. So that really shows how it was able to pull in, outside people that weren't really into that thing, and get them enthralled in it.
And also, I feel like it also works as a standalone movie, because they don't really reference that much. It leaves enough where it leaves you guessing, hey, why is this and that? But I guess it helps that everyone kind of know an idea what the Hulk is. Yeah. And I guess Avengers now are deep into pop culture. It's like Batman, Superman, where you don't need an introduction, or you don't need to explain their backstory over and over and over again, to where it's like, okay, it's a running meme, like the whole Batman loses his parents, or the Hulk getting infected with a certain serum, all that kind of stuff. It just, I don't know, I guess it just expects the audience to be smart enough not to always question what's happening next. Which
I've been enjoying that in recent years with movies, where they just, they address it, but they don't flesh it out, the origin story, because everybody knows it, and it leaves more time for actually, cool stories and set pieces and stuff like that, and they don't have to worry about, I got to tell this story over again. I can just go straight into whatever I want to tell.
And I feel like this is really the first movie that really used music and used I forgot the band.
Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin. Because I've seen other movies where it's just like, okay, you're just doing this just to do it, and there's no other reason. But with this one, it was like, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, also in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, I think the music they pick, I think it's very fit. I think that's one of the biggest draws to the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, is the music. So I think music does definitely help in these movies, getting these licensed songs in them. Yeah. Gets people excited. And also helps the artists too, especially in Guardians of the Galaxy, a lot of those songs, I know people have never heard of them before then, and afterwards it's in their playlist, and they listen to it on the regular.
Mad. You don't know some of these songs. They don't know. Oh, I'm mad. You got anything?
Well, not really though, but for me, I think the music is one of the key things in all Marvel movies, but if the director or whoever is doing the movie, then if they decide not to do music, then I can still watch the movie. So, yeah.
All right, well, up next, we're going to check out Black Panther Wakanda Forever after these messages.
Yeah.
My Shiro doesn't always wear a cape, but she always has time for a hug, a smile, for going the extra mile. My Shiro stretches every dollar, puts in long hours, puts others first. But now it's your time, Mom. When you're ready to retire, we want you to be able to enjoy it. It's time to start saving now. A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today. Visit aceyourretirement.org/Shiro.
Well, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is my favorite movie because, of course, it's the first ever movie with a full black cast, and it's so it's so good, and it's just beautiful. What do y'all think of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever?
Well, I guess before that, we gotta look at the trailer for just get an audience an idea. I haven't seen it.
I need to know if Wakanda is an ally or an enemy.
You can come and find out.
Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, rated PG-13.
Well, after that action-packed trailer, I hope y'all enjoyed. So the thing about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is that the thing is that we also have to acknowledge, Chadwick Boseman eventually, did pass away before the movie was even like released. I think he passed away even when they were like writing the script, of course, for Black Panther 2. And that really, and before the movie came out, it was like a whole big question, like, okay, are they going to recast him? Are they going to get somebody else? How are they going to continue it? Or is the movie going to acknowledge it? But, I think the movie did do a good way of, acknowledging, his death, but also doing a good job of sending him off, and also, acknowledging, how Shuri is dealing with his death, and also the actors at the same time.
Yeah, no, I think they did it very respectfully, addressing his death and everything. I think they did it very, very well in addressing it, and it made sense in the story, that okay, his sister's taking the mantle, and also a big part of this movie. Most people are still like, part of the movie is dealing with this death and this transition of power, and I think that's a really cool dynamic to build off of that, because like throughout this whole movie, everyone's just struggling with the passing of him and trying to figure out, who's going to take up the mantle. And Shuri, she isn't really up to it. Like she's not very spiritual, with me and being the Black Panther. It's a very spiritual role.
I think about. I'm sorry. Can you change?
No, go ahead.
I think about some movies. I love how they bring up the idea of like questioning, somebody's own religion in their family and everything, because everyone's, because I know a lot of people that use their religion to, help them grieve when a loved one passes away or a friend passes away, and I think it's a good message, and a good idea to show, like, hey, what happens if, you have somebody who's constantly hearing from other people, oh yeah, he's in a better place, with the whole Black Panther, spirituality, afterlife, and Shuri's like, well, I didn't really believe in this stuff because it makes sense because she's more into the science. This whole idea of, evolution versus, religion. That's been a big topic recently. It has been. And I just like how, representing it where, look, she's not in the wrong. She just has her own, ideas of how she is trying to, deal with grief. And and her as a scientist is like, well, I'm not big into spirituality. I know it's our religion, I know it's our culture, but it also makes sense where they're not pointing it as a bad guy. So, no, you have to believe this. It's like, no, she's her own individual person and she can believe what she wants to believe. Yeah.
And like near the end, also becoming the Black Panther, it's a spiritual thing. She does it in her own way. She does it. She adds in, since she's into science and technology, she adds that into it as well. So she makes it her own thing. She makes it her, puts her own identity into that, and I think that's a really cool thing that they did. Do you have anything, John?
Well, I just like the overall scenery.
Yeah.
Of like Shuri going underwater and seeing like the can't remember the name of the other tribe or the other group.
Namar's people.
Yeah.
In that movie. Yeah, no, I was telling John before we started this. I was watching it with my roommate last night, and Namar's, his people came up. I'm like, oh, I didn't know I was watching Avatar 2. All the blue underwater people. I thought that was real funny to see. Yeah. Especially because Avatar came out like a month after this.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, which I'd never been about Avatar, say. But we're not talking about Avatar. We're talking about Black Panther. And the thing is, I heard that the original script, which I gladly throw away, was that it was going to actually Shuri and what was the back end name again? Kono, Baku.
Namor.
Like they were actually going to get together, which I'm glad they threw that script out, because that would be awkward.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if they're going to keep the part of him killing his mom.
That'd be a little awkward, to do that.
And, you know, just going back to, of course I love this movie because of not only other representation that it gives, but also, gives black people a chance to, just show them being black as people. And there's actually some inside jokes that only the black community would get, when they went to first see, Ironheart, and she didn't make a joke of keeping your bald, ashy head away. Was that some jokes that I've heard, my mom say sometimes. And I think this movie is really important because it's really of course we had the Black Panther 2016, but before the Black Panther series, there wasn't really any all black led films that had this big of a budget. Because Hollywood wouldn't give a chance to it, because in some countries, unfortunately, when they see Hollywood doesn't believe that they could sell on a black face. And that's pretty much the reality of the situation.
Yeah, which is crazy because this movie, I think the budget was like $250 million, and that's a lot of money. And I think that's very monumental for a black-led movie like this to have such a large budget like that.
Yeah, it makes me think, it's look, if we didn't have the MCU, then who's going to do it? I mean, it was that conversation where I hate when I hear online, it's like, oh, why are people celebrating this? And it's like, well, if we didn't have the MCU, if the MCU wasn't going to do it, who would have done it? Who would have pulled the trigger on it?
And now that shows now that sets the precedent, like black-led movies with that big of a budget can be very successful, and I think that's a good thing. This movie shows that is possible, and it doesn't have to be the MCU.
Yeah.
And it also represents women also.
Yeah, of course. They're
because all of the other superheroes, minus maybe a couple of Marvel superheroes like Scarlet Witch and
Black Widow,
or Captain
Marvel, they were all white women.
Yes, because
Black Panther introduced, the first Black Panther and this Black Panther introduced more representation of black women in particular.
Especially dark-skinned black women.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is that, it's showing, dark-skinned black women being beautiful, having their hair is natural, having sometimes being bald-headed, which is okay.
Yes.
Having them being strong, having them being leaders, having a queen be strong. Because that's something that, always frustrates me, is that, we can't, it always has to, when it comes to certain roles, it always has to say that, oh yeah, we can only get, movies that are civil rights. We won't get movies that are slavery. We can't just show black people to being strong and being proud to be black and showing our blackness on our shoulders and not being demonized and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And not being put into mother, nanny roles, in the past, black women have been put in these roles as the maid, the slave.
Or when it comes to other black people, we always have to be the sidekick.
Yeah, the sidekick.
Like an Iron Man, yeah.
Or last semester, we talked about a movie called, I forgot what it was called, I think God something. It was about these Egyptian gods. It was a bunch of CD, Tyler knows what I'm talking about. It's not in one of the episodes, but basically it was about the Egyptian gods, but they were all white. And all the black people were in the background in Egypt. It was supposed to be in Africa.
When did it come out? Do you remember?
It maybe came out in 2015.
Wow, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you probably can say, 60s.
And that was before Black Panther. So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah. All right, thank you guys for watching this episode of The Verdict. Tune in next week when we will talk about our favorite movies from the 1980s. See you guys next time.
Yay, that sounds old.